Welcome to Everything Ventured. Today we are going to explore the journeys of turning dreams into reality. I'm your host, Khushi Arora. I'm a results-oriented digital marketer by day and an avid learner by night. In today's episode, we will hear from Joanna Riley. She is the CEO and co-founder of Cenisa, a leading AI talent intelligence platform that helps companies utilize machine learning to make the best and fairest decisions about individual employees and the workforce as a whole. And alongside her, we have Regina Athie, is the CEO and co-founder of Cuentame. Cuentame is a machine learning and mental health focused platform that allows organizations to take action in preventing employee turnover due to things such as burnout or anxiety. This technology is enabling employers to promote healthier and more productive work environments across varied organizations. Together, Joe and Regina make such wonderful guests as their startups are just not about today's workforce and certain pain points, but also tomorrow's workforce and even our future generation of leaders and employees. Essentially, they're showing us how corporations, organizations, and even individuals must embrace cutting edge technology to attract and retain the right people for a positive and successful environment. So a huge welcome to Joanna and Regina. I feel very, very fortunate to be hosting a powerhouse of women entrepreneurs just like yourselves, as this is our very first episode of Everything Ventured. And I'm just really excited for our listeners to hear your stories, maybe feel a little inspired. But yeah, big thank you. And feel free to take the mic, tell our listeners a little bit more about yourselves, your backgrounds, anything that I missed.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, I'm really excited to be here. Let me start by sharing something that most people don't know about me. I'm an accountant, but I don't really get into politics. Coming from a financial background, getting involved in mental health was a personal decision for me. My partners and I all have personal experiences with mental health, whether through our families or ourselves, and that's what drew us to our mission at Cuentame. Also, I love to dance. When I was younger, I did a lot of dancing, such as Irish, Arabic, all kinds. Now in my 30s, I'm trying to reconnect with that passion and my love for music. I also love reading novels, especially when I'm traveling or even sitting in traffic. I always have audiobooks with me so I can listen to stories while I'm stuck in the Mexico City traffic. So that's a little bit more about me. And well, of course, I look forward to sharing more about Cuéntame with your listeners over the course of the next hours.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, one thing, I was born and raised in San Francisco, which is kind of interesting. I still live here in San Francisco. I'm third generation, which is kind of wild. We've seen a lot of evolutions and ebbs and flows of the city. But I went to undergrad at University of Virginia, and I was recruited to the FBI, which is the thing a lot of people don't know. Like, ever since I was a young girl, my parents were like, all the other girls were like, we want to do ballerina and we want to do horse riding. And I'm like, I want to be an assassin. Parents were like, what is wrong with you? So ever since I was like really young, this entire kind of really desire to just kind of more an altruistic desire of how can I really do the right thing for my country, and how can I do the right thing for people? And so went into the FBI, worked right out of college for them, and absolutely loved it. But I hated the bureaucratic structure, and so realized pretty quick. I was also a competitive athlete. I was a rower, which will come up probably a little later, as there's no conversation allowed to happen without me somehow making some analogy of rowing. Which absolutely changed my life, but I was a very competitive person. And so really kind of kicked off my entrepreneurship journey. And Sensi is my fourth company. I've learned a lot. And really, I've traveled, something a lot of people don't know. I've traveled to over 120 countries. I absolutely love just going on experiences and meeting different people and seeing kind of both. It allows me to really understand how unbelievable it is what we have here. And in my free time, I'm not dancing, but I am kiteboarding. So it's a passion of mine to be out on the water, and feels like you're riding a dragon kiteboarding. So it's always very fun.
That's amazing.
It comes up a lot, and it's also a thing.
Yeah.
People are always like, "What?" Like, it's already very odd.
Yeah, they're like, how'd you get there? What did you do?
Yeah, exactly. Like, start from scratch. Yeah,
because some people don't
absolutely
also have an idea of like what it being in the FBI like really does take in your
I
journey there
know.
and stuff. So
Yeah. It's interesting.
yeah,
It's
that's
not what
cool.
TV shows. TV's like, we love the name of FBI and what the police do. We'll just merge them. It's like FBI does not kick down doors. It's not just like riding around on the streets in the middle of the night, like arresting people.
How
That's
long
the police.
were you in the FBI for?
A little over 2 years. So
Oh wow.
I wrote my college thesis based on my work with them, and then worked with them right out of school.
Wow.
So
And
it
what
was,
was your biggest takeaway, you think?
oh, I have a ton of takeaways, but I was actually really where my zone of genius is able to be. Like I had a supervisor agent. We were in the Middle East. I was in the international training unit, so I trained police in the Middle East and Africa. And we were in the Middle East on a training, and he was a very famous FBI agent. And he's like, you know, Joe, the bureau will lose you. And I was like, "What? The bureau's not going to lose me." And he's like, no, you can be in front of thousands of people changing the world and impacting the way that things are done. And the bureau is going to take that light and that passion, and it's going to try and stick it in a box and like keep it in control. And it was really hard. I watched him have to go through mandatory retirement, 25 years, which is required in the FBI. I watched another one of my supervisor agents go through mandatory retirement, and it's just really hard to see that. You're like, these people have contributed so much, and now their life starts and they're 50 55 years old, and that's kind of a crazy experience. I think there's a lot. I one time, well, there was a big inspiration of why I got into HR. I was recruited to the FBI, so I didn't really go through any kind of process. I went through a whole lot of processes once I had been identified, but I didn't put in an application. There was a process. There was a time where I was at headquarters, and I went to a place. There was a room where it was like, showed how many people are applying to the bureau every minute and what was happening to those resumes. And it was enough shocking for me that it sticks with me really closely around how can we make sure that people are seen for opportunities and make sure that we're not, there's a lot of legal requirements that if people are applying to jobs, you have to look at them. And there's ways that companies have figured out how to kind of look at them, but they don't actually look at them, and they don't comprehend how good they are. And so it was kind of one of the things. It was a long, long time ago, but it was one of those things that's obviously very much changed now. But it was one of those things that really stuck with me, that this is that we've got to fix this.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know you mentioned about like kind of your journey towards the FBI and how you felt like you wanted to do something like for the greater good, for the community, for the people and stuff. Do you think that has changed over time where you're like, okay, I can like scale that down, or you think you still feel that sense of purpose towards that goal and you feel yourself doing that with Cenisa?
Yeah, I mean, there's, if you think of what Censia is, we built models on hundreds of millions of people. So we basically built one massive profiling engine, but not try identify, potential murders, like to identify opportunity in people that are, and I think that for sure that, you're people would always be like, oh, is Sensi a mission-led company? And to your question, like, I do think that people are mission-led. They come out that way from kind of the get-go, is they're like, I have a passion to do this. And I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to have that, because if you don't have something that like drives you every day, we have our, massive goal is that we would touch at least 1 billion people, and help at least 1 billion people be seen for opportunities that otherwise wouldn't, because of bias or subjectivity or outdated technologies. To have that kind of a passion, you have to like be driven, kind of from the get-go. So it's an interesting observation, probably very much connected. Doctor, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like so many people think that way, like as they grow up and they go through different experiences, it's like, oh, I want to do something bigger than myself, or I want to help in this way. And I think sometimes we think there's limited ways to do that, but I mean, I feel like both of you are doing that in a very unique way that you probably could have never imagined when you were like 18 years old,
Yeah.
So I think just showing people out there that there's so many ways and opportunities to like help yourself, help your community, help your people outside of like, you know, something like joining the FBI or volunteer work or being in the military,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like there's a lot out there. Like
Yeah.
Censia and Cuentame.
Yeah. Regina, what was your dream? What were you dreaming of being at 18?
It's been interesting because at 18, I wasn't sure what I wanted to study. I just knew I wanted to help people. I had this idea of creating an NGO, focusing on anything that would allow me to connect with others and make a difference. I guess it's partly due to my zodiac sign, Cancer, which is all about empathy and nurturing relationships. So that's where my heart was. But my father gave me some valuable advice. He said, Regina, you need to create something sustainable, something that doesn't rely solely on donations. That made me think, well, when I discovered the world of impact driven startups, it really clicked. I realized I could combine my passion for helping people with building something that could grow sustainably, something of real value for people that will be willing to pay for. At 18, I never imagined I'd become an entrepreneur. That wasn't really on my radar at all, especially in Mexico, where the startup scene didn't really take off until around 2012. By the time I was finishing university, it felt like a really new world for me was emerging, a space where I could follow my passion, make a difference, and build something impactful. So, yeah, that's, I think, how it all came together.
In terms of changing the world, you were led to like the mental health space immediately, or was that kind of just happened?
Mental health has been a part of my life since childhood, as it is for many people. For me, Kushi, it became especially significant when my parents divorced. I was 7 at the time, and it was very much a change for me. I had to move to a different part of the country because I was close to Texas in Mexico, in a city called Chihuahua, start a new school, make new friends, and the adjustment was really tough. Fortunately, my mother, who was very forward thinking, took me to a child psychologist, and that support really helped me a lot. But in high school, things shifted away. I became very focused on being the best, like the best in academics, the best in sports, and just looking a certain way. It was a lot like the competitive nature of the digital world we live in today. I felt this constant pressure to be the smartest, the most beautiful, the most athletic, and it really affected me deeply because instead of enjoying high school, I was competing with my friends on all fronts. These pressures really weighed on me, like carrying a heavy burden on my back. Instead of just living my life day by day, I did see a psychologist again, which helped me a lot, but the real turning point came in university. I remember seeing a friend taking pills just to perform better on exams, and it really hit me hard. I thought like, oh my God, it's just an exam, not life or death. And of course, sure, it's important, but not worth compromising your well-being over. In one semester, there were so many suicides that they had to stop exams and postpone them for the next term. Several people took their own lives within the same month. That was a really wake-up call for me, and I realized it wasn't just me struggling with mental health, it was a much larger issue affecting lots of people. That's when I connected with my co-founder. We received a scholarship to study at Georgetown University, where we started to truly understand entrepreneurship and how technology could transform lives. That's how we found our way into the mental health space. 5 years ago, in Mexico, when we talk about it, people would say, okay, but is there really a market? Is that really important? We were like, yes, in the US, this is a big deal, and we're seeing it impact our own lives. We knew we had to build something around this, but at the time, we didn't have much support.
Yeah,
Mhm.
things have changed, but starting that conversation then is huge, you know.
Yes.
And it's a hard conversation to start in comparison to other ones. So
Yes.
definitely
Yeah.
kudos to you there. And like that's quite the journey. I feel like also it's a space of like people will always be ebbing and flowing with their mental health. That'll always be a topic of conversation, whether it's something people want to get vulnerable with or like talk about in the workspace or deal with in the workspace. I think that's always changing, but even with what I see with like these newer generations,
Yes.
all those concerns are still there. If not, they might be
Definitely.
worse with like social media and
Yeah.
we know how it goes.
Yes, people are now choosing where to work based on reputation of the leaders in those companies. It's something crucial. It's not just HR, it depends on every conversation a leader has within the company. HR can't be everywhere, sorry. So it really comes down to the mindset and culture leaders create. It's fascinating to see how this is evolving. The workspace environment is becoming such an interesting space.
People's priorities have shifted too, right? When it comes to like finding a job,
Yes.
or being in certain environments. Like, if I talk to my parents or grandparents, like it's the number one is like, what's the salary? What are you getting paid? And I'm not saying that that's obviously still very important for everyone.
Of
It's
course.
just
Yes.
there's been shifts with like, okay, things as do I feel comfortable and safe in my workspace might be more important than that.
Yeah.
And that's been very interesting to see too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yes, kudos to you, Regina. I wanted to ask because I know we were talking about being competitive. Is that a quality you think makes you the leader you are today? One of the qualities, and do you think that all leaders need to have that?
What do you think, Joe?
Yeah. So, I think there's one commonality I've found across leaders. I'm in an organization called YPO where it's 35,000 CEOs, and I went on this quest in the beginning when this was like almost a decade ago that I joined YPO, and and I was like, I want to figure out like the secret sauce that makes a super successful leader. And I found there was like one commonality, and that one commonality was they just didn't quit. It's like, and when you're competitive or you're an athlete, I would show up every day. I was a rower. We'd show up every day at practice at 4 a.m. That was like our first practice. We had 3 practices a day, and I was in college, and I had like whatever thing happening on the side, like whatever you kind of just find time and you make your life work. But there were days where I would just destroy it. Like I was on cloud 9, I was rocking it, and I was like, nothing can touch me. And the very next day I would have like a terrible day and I couldn't win a seat race. And it was just like, and something about being competitive teaches you that it isn't all up and it isn't all down. And if you have a bad day, when I have a bad day, I'm like, oh, thank God this happened now. I'm done with that. And tomorrow will be great. Like, cause it's just part of the process. And I think being competitive teaches you that, because you're like, you get knocked down, you have to get back up again. But if there's an inner driver in general, then you're committed to trying to seek out that opportunity of feeling that kind of that excitement again, or the high, or the success again, then you go for it. I think that it's a mix of, you don't give up and you're a little bit crazy. Like you have to, I think Elon Musk recently just said that building a startup is like staring into the abyss while eating glass. And I think there's something that like truly resonates. Like in order to stare at the abyss where you're like, I don't know what the outcome is, but it's going to be massive and huge. And eating glass is just the taking of every kind of setback that happens. But yet it's just like this massive belief of what you can do and achieve. And I think to do that, you have to be willing to be competitive with mostly yourself. Like mostly it's the inner voice. It's like you're competing with everybody telling you can't do it, but the bigger person that has to be convinced that you can do it is yourself. So yeah, I mean, I think yes, competition is important, and people are more competitive, I think, than they think they are. But what about you, Regina?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I completely agree with you, Khushi. Recently in my therapy, I have been working on understanding why I'm doing certain things, not letting ego drive my actions, like just trying to be the best for the sake of it. But that approach can often misalign with the true purpose of what we're building. For me, Cuentame, this journey has been really about listening closely to the team, to the clients, to the market. This mindset shift is something I didn't have 2 years ago. Back then, I was focused on becoming the best startups, especially as a woman leading a startup in Latin America. But that is not why I founded Cuentame. I started Cuentame to make mental health more accessible, to personalize resources based on every person's individual needs, and to measure the effectiveness of treatments. It's not just about providing affordable mental health services, it's truly about making a difference by measuring the impact. So, resilience and focusing on the vision has really been a key for me. But I have also realized the importance of pausing and making and being more strategic. Instead of just constantly working, and now reflect on what decisions best align with our mission. Sometimes the best decision for our mission isn't the most logical or conventional one, but is what brings us together and closer to what we want to achieve. That shift in mindset has been so important for me personally.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. I feel like it goes into the whole like intrinsic motivations as we were saying, like being self-driven
Yeah.
and those external motivations and how you like really differentiate goes hand in hand, like differentiating being competitive and like I just want to win versus like feeding into your ego. And I think being able that's like such a fine line,
Yeah.
winning and like being competitive and going at things and like it not feeding into your ego in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, it's so interesting because I look at my own like professional career arc and just the evolution of just ego in a weird way, because
Okay.
the more successful, the harder setback, right? Like the more successful, the more the number of people that you touched got, affected, or the more, it was like with the rise became the more successful I became, the more lonely I became. And the more expectation that was on me and the more pressure that was on me. And I think there's this, I look at it now and I feel so much calmer in a weird way. Like it's almost the difference between like, it's just such intentional competition and such intentional decision making versus
Yes.
I'm hungry and eager and like I'm going for it because it's like, there's nothing like a failure, there's nothing like a setback to help people kind of understand how much they want something to be successful. And if they want something to be successful, they're going to be willing to pick up themselves and like go on. And I think that's it. It's just so interesting because I think there's this evolution of ego and there's an evolution as a leader of kind of how you make decisions. Today my measure of success is my one job is like, do I hire, how can I hire smarter people than me and get out of their way? Like, how do I hire the best of the best people? And like, I get to look at this wonderful and incredible team that is building stuff I could never have dreamed of. That's an evolution of it's competition at a very different level. It's not me making every decision. It's stepping back and being like, I trust that all these people are going to be able to make the right decisions and we're going to go into the right direction.
And that Joe, that it's hard, like selecting the right people, like because it sounds very, very cool, but it's so hard, like that they share values, but they're high performers, but they love you. Like, and as a founder, sometimes it's hard to, select the best people and then accompany them in a certain way, like train them so that they can start taking decisions by themselves. I would love to learn more about you in that way. After, I would love to invite you a coffee and just learn more.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I built a whole company around it. So I completely agree. Like, I think this is one of the hardest challenges is to understand how do you find people that have not looking at trying to define them by keywords or what they've, what the companies they've worked at, but much more around what patterns do they have from their past that are going to allow them to be successful in the future. How do you start to identify people that there's things about individuals where you're like, okay, I can pick up that you are more entrepreneurial or that you have more of a ability, you have high followership of people. Like there's all sorts of things that are really interesting that you can understand about people. But I agree, in the beginning, I remember my first company, I was 22. And I was like, that's not true. My first company, I was 4. You're like, oh, you must have been surrounded by tech and young. Yes, I was very competitive and wanted to be. I had unbelievable parents. My mom was an amazing savage of a entrepreneur, and so I had it young. But my first company, I was 4, and I had a snail business, and we went door to door. It was very high tech. We went door to door, and we annihilated snails. It was pretty epic. But I think the first time I ever built a company, I was really young, and you just get excited people want to work for you. That's like a moment in time in the beginning where you're like, what? Like, people start wanting, being like, you'll join, and then you just are excited to have them, but you don't really hold them accountable to the level of performance that is needed to be successful. And I think that was like another evolution of kind of going, how do I define what success looks like, and how can I hold people to that, and how do I set that expectation in the interview so that if they aren't successful, they don't think they failed. They're not a failure. They just aren't right here, and it's like, to be successful here, and it might be that person's not going to be the person, but it's like, to be successful here, this is what my expectation is. So if for any reason it doesn't work out, this is the reason it wouldn't work out.
Yeah. And I think that's okay to say and hear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it only helps you. Personally, I wouldn't want to be somewhere if like it's not the right fit for me.
Right.
Even if I was having a hard time understanding that, that's okay. Like tell me and get me out of that so I can go be more successful elsewhere.
Yeah. Totally. I had I'll tell a quick thing. My mom and dad were like, you're going to be a world-class athlete since when I was a young kid. Maybe this inspired the competitiveness. And I had no evidence whatsoever that I was a world-class athlete. I was actually like a horrible athlete. Like it was 33 sports my parents tried before I found rowing, but I'm in San Francisco, like we don't have rowing everywhere. So you can imagine like horse vaulting and rock climbing come ahead of rowing in California. And so I was like, oh, okay. Like they were like, you're not a world-class athlete at this. But go on and try the next thing. And I think about that all the time with professionally, because sure enough, I went on that 34 sport. I found rowing and I became a world-class athlete. And I had the unbelievable pleasure of knowing what it felt like to be one of the best of the best. And I think we don't let ourselves do that. We try and like fit ourselves into these square pegs, we're round holes fitting in a square peg of going, well, I'm going to do this job, or I'm going to hire this person, I'm going to make it work. And it's like, you're really holding a person back from finding the sport they're going to be a world-class athlete at. And this is not it. Like there's a lot, for whatever reason, startups for sure are not for everybody. And that same person, I've seen so many people that aren't right for a startup go on and be really, really successful at a super large company that they go on and dominate. And I'm like, I can't believe I held them one extra day away from doing that. And I think that's kind of the mind shift that as a leader, we need to have, of trying to say, like, I will help you get there, but I also need to be honest with you when, let's try this, let's go for it. But then let's also be okay if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's something I learned through experience. There was a woman on our sales team who was excellent in operations, but sales wasn't her strength. I made the mistake of keeping her on the sales role for too long because I was focused on hitting our goals and felt I needed to support her. But eventually, I realized that sales wasn't where she would thrive. She was much better suited for operations. So I brought someone else in for the sales team and moved her to operations, where she's now incredibly successful. It was a great decision for her and for the team.
So great.
Yeah. All you need to do is be honest with yourself, with her. And sometimes that's the hardest part.
That's so true. Yeah. It's
especially
so true.
positive for you. At the end of the day, it's made a positive impact for you, Regina, in your company and hers too, in her career. So I think that's a really tough thing too with like future generations, newer generations. It's like, I think there is that fear tactic with doing things like this and like being honest with yourself in the workspace, or figuring out where you actually fit by trying new things and different things, because of like what's going on in the world where it's kind of hard to keep a job or find a job.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think everything you both are saying with like how individuals now and like aspiring entrepreneurs or aspiring leaders and people that want to be in management should approach this world filled with like so much unfortunately failure or like different experiences with startups or even bigger companies. And yeah, if you have anything else to add to that, I feel like that's a big question on my mind right now is like how should people like myself or like a part of the newer generations approach this world filled with things like downfalls or even just like if you're aspiring to be a leader, how do you go about that with all of the changes that have occurred?
Oh my God, that is like the question, of the century. Yeah, there isn't just one answer, but something I have been thinking about, especially as a mentor of some amazing people that I'm mentoring right now, is the importance of doing what you're passionate about. I feel this generation really values passion. You can now build a career around creating content that wasn't possible 20 years ago unless you had a certain connections or opportunities. There's no single path to success anymore. In my generation, we were often told that if you went into finance or consulting, you'd be successful. But now I see people succeeding in all kinds of fields outside of those traditional paths. One thing I emphasize is letting go of preconceived ideas about what it means to be successful or professional. Focus on what you love. And remember, success often takes time. Sometimes it takes 10 or even 20 years, and that's okay. I remind myself not to get impatient, just to enjoy the process because success will come with the right decisions. But if you're obsessed with this, it's less likely it will happen. We're used to wanting everything now, but it's fine if it takes time. And another piece of advice I give is to connect with people you admire. Do not be afraid to reach out, whether it's just for coffee or a conversation. Many people are happy to share 30 minutes of their time, and you can learn so much from those interactions. That's always something that I encourage.
I think one of the big things is just in everything that is done, I think there's a couple things. One, whatever when when I one of the big things that I brought into my life was that whatever I was asked to do, I was like, I'm just going to do it the best I can. If someone was like, get coffee, it was going to be the best coffee out there. Like if everyone understood the micro moments that exist in life to find greatness, it's unbelievable. Like the number of times, if someone said, Joe, you had, if you could look at your whole life and be like, I played these chess moves to get to here. Those chess moves would all be connected with me being able to get noticed for one thing by somebody who then made this change and was like, oh, we should introduce that, or oh, you should do this, or you should meet that person. And sure enough, like it came from because I never kind of phoned it in. Like, even if no matter what, I think even if you're in just the beginning of your career, just don't phone it in. Like this is a shot. Every day is a shot, and we don't quite know. It's easy to kind of go like, oh, this isn't working out. The day's been bad or whatever. And I remember I had there's lots of opportunity. I mean, I can go on to like many, many, many stories of remembering. But I remember one time I like went to this dinner. I was like, oh, I really don't want to go to this dinner. VC dinner. No, I'm just kidding. But it was a VC dinner. It was like I was like, I don't want to do this. And I sat next to a guy named Greg Tom, and Greg at the time was the president of Success Factors, and I was just starting the company. And Success Factors is owned by SAP. They were the second largest HCM or human capital management system after Workday, and I was like, he's like, so tell me what you do. And like that one moment right there was my moment to be like, all right, I'm going to tell him what I'm doing. Now, this is a dinner. There's like no intention of what's going to like how this is going to work. There's no structure of like, okay, I'm going to go. And there was no plan. Right. And throughout that dinner, he's like, I want you to come and meet with me. I think this is a huge problem all my customers are trying to solve. That went on to us becoming the first partners at SAP. Again, I remember at like 5 a.m. being on phone calls with the sales team of SAP, pitching them like our solution so that they could go talk to their customers. And I'm like, whatever it is, like I will like do it better than I will always take the opportunity to like be the best. And today, Greg Tom went on to be running sales for Workspace at Google, and then he went on to be president of Zoom, and now he's our president. And it's like an amazing experience to think about these journeys where you go, oh my God, it started because I went to that dinner I almost didn't go to, and I like showed up and I leaned in and I did the whole thing. And I think that truly is probably my biggest advice, is do that and combine that with do things before you think you're ready to do them. So he's like, I think you should be an SAP partner. We should distribute you. And I'm like, oh my God, what are all the things that could go wrong? But if I like lean in and I have that same approach of going like, I can do this, like I can do this. And now I'm going to bring my whole team along to do it. I think those are the two biggest things, is like, whatever you do, just do it great. No matter if it's an email, if it's coffee, if it's a podcast, like I'm already sitting here being like, I know I'm going to reach out to people and be like, she's rocking this. Like it's so natural for you to be running a podcast. I don't even know how this is your first podcast on this. Like, it's just amazing. I'm like, do you do this professionally? Because it's just a natural conversation, which is really hard to do. And you're just showing up and you're doing it great. And I think those are the moments where people notice and they go, huh, like, all right, I'm gonna bring that person with me when I go do this other thing. You already know this because I've already hired you and you've already left me, and I always try and hire you back. I'm like, come back here and work with me.
That's why all the praise is coming in. I know.
Yeah. No, it's not true. Yeah, exactly. It's all the praise because I want you back because you're that valuable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with the whole, like, I feel like it's being authentic to yourself and really thinking about like what you truly want from your life. I love your idea of like those micro moments. I think that rings so true. I feel like it goes back again to like, being competitive with yourself and yourself only. I feel like when people think of competition, and I know we keep going back to this, but like when people think of competition, it's always external. And that's something that's bugged me probably my whole life, because I don't actually consider myself a competitive person. And I was playing like some stupid game with someone the other day, and they were like, no, you actually are competitive. And I was like, but I'm not. I was like, if I am, like, it's just truly with myself. I'm getting mad at not winning this round because I won last time. And it's just because of that. It's not because you beat me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's nothing like getting on a Peloton and looking like, if you are going on there and you look at your score first, you're on the right track. Like, every time I get on the Peloton, I'm like, how was I that much better last time? Like, I have to get going. Like, the motivation on a Peloton is like, yes, it's great, they're yelling at me, but I'm also like, damn, that day was good. Like, I got to get back to that score. Like, that score of like, here's where you should be if you want to beat your last score. I'm like, there will be weeks where I will like spend the whole week just trying to beat my last score. And it's like, that's, I think that's the coolest. I agree. I think it is all in you to just kind of go, life is full of like, the world laughs when you make plans. Life is full of surprises, and it's full of these opportunities to kind of go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was going to happen that way, but I'm going to take it and run with it and just be better for myself and experience more for myself every day.
Yeah, I'm sure you both learned that like agility a lot through your kind of leadership experiences. I'm already starting to feel like I've started managing people, and I feel like, everyone's different. You have to learn different communication styles and all that type of thing. And you're speaking to me and I'm understanding it. So it's nice.
Thank God. That would be weird if we weren't getting it.
No, it's
like,
very
I'm not
valid.
sure what these people are talking about.
I think like, I mean, even for like these future generations and everything, it's all super relevant. And all this advice and like direction, I think is really helpful, because like we said, the space has changed so much where you can very easily fall into those external things. And I think bringing it back in, like reeling it in to be authentic with yourself is important. But please tell us more about Sensia, Cuentame, your journeys as female entrepreneurs, maybe where your idea sparked, anything you really want to talk about in terms of your babies, your companies, your products themselves, like what are they solving? What's that wow factor? I personally love your product, so I would love to hear more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that is what sets us apart as Cuéntame. From the beginning, we focus on truly understanding the ecosystem and how we could create real value. Every person involved in building, selling, or operating a Cuéntame is deeply connected to our purpose. So when we face setbacks, we always return to that purpose as our guide. We have faced many challenges that have ultimately made us better. For example, one of the key things we learn in the B2B mental health space in Latin America is that companies invest only on what they see a clear return on investment. Unlike in the US, where companies might adopt several mental health solutions, in countries like Mexico, Colombia, or Argentina, they typically choose one and stick to it due to the smaller budgets. So we had to ask ourselves, what does return on investment mean for these companies? It means really providing metrics for them to make informed decisions, ensuring employee safety, and showing how we add a tangible resource. Most companies didn't or don't think we have that they have the clear ways to measure how mental health impacts in their workplace, especially in terms of preventing accidents or improving mental well-being. Another lesson we learned was the inadequacy of traditional crisis lines. In the past, you could call a crisis line and not even speak to a psychologist. Imagine that. Sometimes it was just a general health center. We couldn't believe this was the norm. These lines also didn't understand how to measure effectiveness in what they're providing for these people. We realized mental health can and should be measured, whether it's improving conditions like depression, anxiety, and burnout. Understanding these gaps is what inspired us to disrupt this space. So, how did we approach this? Initially, we started building our product from the comfort of our city, but we quickly realized that wasn't enough. We had to visit the manufacturing sites, the call centers, and the workspaces to understand what metrics truly matter in different industries. This hands-on approach completely changed how we built and sold our products. Being on site with our clients helped us to grow because when we met with other companies in the same industries, they recognized that we understood their business. We weren't just offering a nice solution in mental health, but we were providing something that worked for their specific needs and their employees. This focus on being present, listening, and getting our hands dirty, it's something we emphasize across our teams. Innovation comes from being on the ground, engaging with clients, and understanding what's really happening. That's why we prioritize hiring people who are willing to go the furthest places in Colombia, for example, to see if our product works there and not figuring out what happens when and what needs to change. This is what we're trying and what we're doing differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most a critical early stage turning moment is the investors that are around a company. Sarah, unbelievable investor of ours. They stuck us, with incredible, enterprises. We were surrounded by others that, to Regina's point, being able to have direct conversations with enterprises changed everything for us because it allowed us to hear what is the problem that they need to solve. And I think that the moment really clicked as we said, okay, these companies have these problems. Why are the existing solutions not working? And then trying to really uncover what would work. And that was given to us because we had the opportunity to work with unbelievable executives at enormous companies because our investors stuck us there. And, Sarah especially, was something really important for us. And so I think thinking about who you're surrounded by early days, you're going to hire you're going to hire people that are going to get their hands dirty and roll up their sleeves and work hard, but you need to also have people that have kind of had pattern recognition, if you will, of how do you make successful companies? How do you make successful companies selling into the enterprise? And that was really something that I think it comes a lot with the investors. And so picking the investors wisely is a critical thing for success. And I think it's always been a really, raised hundreds of millions of dollars in my life. And that's always the thing that I can like, okay, I could have done that better. Or like, I really nailed it that time, So that's a big one, but this has been such a great conversation. I absolutely love this, Khushi.
Yeah, I'm
And Regina,
so glad I
this is
could chat with
amazing.
you
Yeah.
both. And I feel like, as you said, like having that support system, in personal and professional life comes in many different ways. And I think we chatted a lot
Yes.
about how to get that, how future generations can achieve that as an individual, as an organization, whatever it may be. But again, thank you both for chatting with me today, being that first guest of the Everything Ventured podcast. It's been really fun. I certainly learned a lot more about both of you, your impact on our society, and I loved, our conversations about leadership and innovation. So it's been a riveting conversation.
To our HR leaders and entrepreneurs, we hope you found value in learning more about Cenisa and Cuentame. These innovative platforms are transforming the hiring process by eliminating bias and fostering healthier work environments to help prevent burnout, all with the power of AI and machine learning. We're excited to continue to bring you insightful content about businesses and the leaders behind them. Be sure to join us for our next episode, where we'll dive into the world of investments from the investor's perspective. Stay tuned.